Katie Schoenhoff. I am Director of Programs at United Methodist Health Ministry Fund. I have been at the Health Fund since 2013, and this has been, we've had a number of iterations of healthy congregations even since I've been here. And Judy Johnston, who does our training and helps support all of the work around healthy congregations, has worked very closely with us on this process. And so we just wanted to go ahead and share a few exciting announcements that we feel are good. A couple of, I would say, housekeeping pieces or just things to know. We are muting lines right now because of the amount of feedback that we will get through the system if we don't. And again, because we're recording this for other people to be able to look at a later point, if you look, there's a chat box. And if you go to the chat box, you can click and you can ask questions that way. And it's down, I'm assuming, Judy, my screen looks a little bit different. It's down on the bottom, correct? Where there's a chat box button. That it
Yes,
looks like
again, in those little bubbles, there's one that looks like a cartoon speaker, and if you hover over that, that gets you your chat, and your chat box will pop up on the right hand side. And then down at the bottom of it, you have the option if you want to send something to an individual versus to everyone, or to Katie and me. And then underneath that, it says enter your chat message, and you just type in and then press enter, and it'll pop up in the chat box.
Feel free to, like, if you have a message for either Judy or I privately, you can do it that way. Or if you want to send it to everyone, that's great too. That would be a great way to keep track of questions. And maybe what we'll do would be to answer those towards the end, unless we have some time in the middle that we feel like we should pause. So that may be another opportunity if you'd like to do it then. So,
Katie, we have somebody that's having trouble getting sound. So you should be sure that your audio is connected. Sometimes I'm on a laptop. I'm assuming that you might be as well, Chris. You may have a button on your laptop or your headset that turns off your audio. So you want to look at that. In my case, it's up on the upper right-hand corner, and it allows me to just stop my audio. The other thing is on your screen, the bottom right hand corner. You can click on that and make sure that your speaker is not muted.
Those are all good. And you may need to call in if you're having problems with your sound. I have had other people have to do that pretty regularly. So there's a spot where you can change audio and the sound coming through. So again, we're still getting a number of people coming in. So thank you all. I know this is we're all learning on this, and so we just suggest on that. Can you hear me okay, Judy, on mine end?
I can. Katie does not have her video on, so you're not seeing her picture. What? You're seeing me, and I apologize for having to look at me, but
I thought I was sharing. Okay, sorry. I think if you scroll through, you can see me. Yep. Okay, sorry about that. Well, welcome. And again, thank you all so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for giving us a couple of minutes to just go through a few housekeeping pieces of how to handle this. And again, sound-wise, if you're having issues, you should probably check to make sure your speakers are turned up and other sound places that you have that as well. Great. So, and then again, feel free to use the chat box to ask questions or to make comments as we're going through. So let's go ahead and begin.
Sounds good.
Right. So I'm going to shrink a few things down so I can see a little bit better on this. So I apologize. So, you know, one of the things that we wanted to give you guys is a little bit of feedback on how we decided to get to this piece. So as you can see on the left-hand side, it's taking the things that making the good parts better and letting go of the rest. And that's kind of the theme of what we're trying to think through and consider. So first of all, I have to say thank you guys so much for your engagement and involvement in helping inform this process. We know that sometimes you are asked to do surveys. We were listening, and we really meant it when we asked for you to provide feedback and comments to us, because we know it's really important to help make sure that this process doesn't work for just us, but for everyone. And so we wanted to know and find out how things were going. So I think a couple of the things that, we had the survey that we did a while ago. There was also last fall. We've also tried to connect with a number of people and just get feedback from you. We're still going to be doing similar pieces of that moving forward. So you will hear and see maybe from a few of you. I know that we're still trying to figure out components of that. Again, the surveying, we've done deeper one-on-one conversations with team leads. We have also worked really hard to talk with other people who are program partners of us extensively, sharing and exploring new visions for healthy congregations. We feel like there's some time right now to embark on some new components and think it's really helpful for that. So what we really want and what our goal has been for this is maintaining the program quality and effectiveness while streamlining and right-sizing the requirements whenever possible. We know this is a lot of work, and we know that you guys are doing so many great things. And so we wanted to make sure that we're right-sizing the amount of programmatic pieces while also helping inform our work, because it's really helpful for us to know what's going on, engaging that. And we are really excited to introduce these new pieces to you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you know kind of a bit. We'll get into the details of this. So first things first, as we're talking about this, due to COVID-19, some pieces have changed and we pushed back dates. I think we've let you know that we were going to move deadlines back. So we're changing the grant renewal cycle a bit. As you'll see here, in the past, we had one deadline, June 30th, correct? So now we're looking at changing this and adapting the system a little bit so that the report and needs assessment are going to be due. This year it will be July 15th, normally a May 15th. So the reason that we're doing this is really for you guys to have some time where you don't feel like you have to do it all in one fell swoop. And you're using that time to really inform the needs assessment and the reporting process to then help you reflect, assess, and then as you can see on the right-hand side, we're talking about doing the work plan and the actions, so the plan and do piece of that. And so that's really the process that we're trying to help facilitate for you guys, and so that's why we're changing this a little bit. So from here on, the plans will be due 45 days after the sorry, I need to move mine. I'm getting some feedback. We will do 45 days later. So this year it will be August 31st that your work plans will be due. Again, to hopefully help where you're not feeling like so stressed to get everything done in all one day and spend a lot of time. And these will normally be due on June 30th, but right now, because of the COVID, we wanted to push things back and give you all time to kind of get resettled and recommitted. Before I move on, I do want to also remind you all of the COVID response grants that we've had. We have already had a tremendous amount of response, and thank you guys so much for your interest in this. I think that we've reviewed 28 grant proposals already, and we still have quite a bit more. So if anyone is interested, we are doing 500 COVID response grants that are due by May 31st. And it is a first come, first serve. So as the money's there, we will go ahead and reissue if there's, we will get grants based on that process. So get those into us. If you all know of some things that may be important pieces, we've had a number of different components that people have asked for. A lot of people wanting support towards their local food banks or meeting the needs of their local congregations to help with communication strategies during this time. Some were working on blood drive components, just some really cool, interesting pieces that I think have been super helpful, and hopefully they will feel like make a difference for them. Part of the reason, and I should also mention, masks were a big one too. I've had one church tell us they've made 7,000 masks in the last 4 weeks. And so these are the type of things we know you guys are doing, so we want to try to help and be responsive where we can too. So moving on from that, again, I just want to highlight the needs assessment and the report dates this year will be moved to July 15th. And those are required to be in. And then once you have that in, then we will do a plan 45 days later. Judy, is there anything you want to add on this piece before we move on?
I just to say that as we get into the weeds of this a little bit, you'll see that your report and your needs assessment are different. So if you're looking at that saying, oh, they're moving it up, yes, there's a rationale for moving it up, as Katie said, so that you don't have everything due at once, and so that you actually have the information from your report and your needs assessment to use for your planning. But as we get into this and you see some of the other changes, I think that this will make even more sense to you for why we're doing it. So the next thing on this slide is the virtual office hours, and I've been having virtual office hours, haven't had a lot of uptake yet, but let me explain what that is. I basically am giving you dates and time slots where I will promise you I will be at my computer with my headset on. Those of you that have asked for individual help in the past, you know, you've had to send me a note, and then we've had to look at my calendar and schedule a time and so on, and I decided it was best to just make sure that I'm available to you. So these are virtual office hours. You can see they're always on a Monday, and from 10 to 11 in the morning, and again from 4 to 6 in the late afternoon, evening. I had put them in every other month, but with all the changes, I thought you needed some additional dates. So take a note of those additional dates. We have June 22nd, July 13th, August 17th and 24th, and then we have 2 other dates later in the fall. If we find that we need more of these dates and times, we can add them. But basically, you have a Zoom link. If you go to the calendar, the Healthy Congregations calendar, the Zoom link is right there. Click on that and you'll join by computer. If it's easier for you to call, use the phone number, and that will come straight to my headset. And so that we can have a conversation about whatever you need help with or questions that you want answered. So we can do that one-on-one, or if you decide, if I hear from some of you that you want to talk, several of you want to talk about a particular topic, just let me know and we'll pull some things together. But at this point, it's not a meeting with an agenda. It's just like I'm in my office and you come in and sit down and talk to me. So we've added some additional dates and hours for the virtual office hours. I promise I will be on the computer with my headset. All I need is for you to let me know what I can do. Somebody just said, can we have a reminder about the times? My recommendation is you put them on your calendar. They're on the Healthy Congregations online calendar, but if you have a calendar on your phone, I highly recommend that you do that, because then you'll get a reminder on your phone of what's already on your calendar, as opposed to having a reminder that you have to go back and look at. So that would be my recommendation. The other big change is going to be training, and I'm spending a lot of time working on training right now. We never have a lot of uptake on the fall or on the summer training, so I don't offer training in the summer. We normally do training at retreat, and of course this year we had to cancel the retreat because of the COVID-19, but we will resume some training in the fall. I am in the process of really converting a lot of our training so that it's available in multiple formats. I know some of you prefer face-to-face, some of you like the virtual, some of you have asked for self-paced options. All of those things are going to be possible. So I'm in the process of taking things that I think could be self-paced, that you have almost an online workbook that you kind of work through with a video. There will be some that maybe we have a 1 3-hour course, and I say maybe because it's still in development, but we may try to get it down to where we have just 1 3-hour course and then a follow-up session after you and your team have worked on some things, probably during some of the virtual office hours. So that's one of those things I'm continuing to work on, but I want to let you know that as you add team members, or if you feel like you need a refresher course, there's going to be a lot more options for training than there have been in the past, and it's going to be scaled down. That's one of the things people told us, that they had trouble fitting that 7 hours of training either in one day on a Saturday or in the evenings. They had trouble fitting in that in their schedule. So we're putting it together so that you can do it at your own pace, and it can be kind of self-run with some follow-up with me. So stay tuned. I'm working on that, and I hope to have it, let me rephrase that. I will have it all finished by the end of June. Katie.
Thank you. I'm moving on to the next slide. So again, so the program benefits continue with some additions. So one thing to know, that again, the $1,000 grants, renewable every year, that's the same. As we talked about the needs assessment piece, one thing that we're doing is that when you are required to do this, we're changing how frequently you are submitting a full needs assessment. So as Judy alluded to in the previous slide, in saying, while we're moving up the deadlines, we're also changing the requirements. So what we're really moving towards is once every 5 years doing a needs assessment, and a fairly comprehensive one. And then we're going to add an additional $250 every 5 years when your team is required to do that piece. You know, again, the conference-wide network of congregations doing similar work. One piece of it that I continue to think about, and these opportunities that Judy's alluding to as well with the office hours, if there are certain topics or things that you want to bring up, it's a great opportunity to do that. Same with learning communities. We really appreciate your engagement tonight. And if there's other topics that you think would be relevant, feel free to reach out to us and engage us in that way too. You know, the retreat, we will continue it. I'm sorry that this year it's been really hard, considering it would have been this last weekend. But we've also had some time that then we could focus on making these changes and hopefully make it more of a benefit for you guys as well. You know, we're here, Judy's here to help you through virtual office hours, scheduled webinars, times together, interactions where if you have questions, we're available and want to be supportive of you. So please feel free to reach out to the Health Fund staff as well as Judy during any questions and different concerns if you're having anything. And then we have been really fortunate to have a number of experts that we're working with through various special grants. And so you guys have access to people who are experts in their fields, understanding how to implement these programs in a way, and then also having, you know, special grants that are something that maybe you, people in your community, may be engaged with and interested in doing. And then training to help you get the most out of healthy congregations. So.
There is a note in the chat box, Katie, from Joyce asking when they will know if they're gifted a grant. I'm assuming that she is talking about the COVID-19 grants, and I know you're turning those around really quickly.
Yes, we're trying to do those within a week or two of when we receive the application. So, yes, we are trying to be very responsive to those so that they're a really quick turnaround timeline. Good question. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, when we talk about streamlining, and Judy, please feel free to interject anything here. You know, as we talk about the old program, right? Every year we were requiring the needs assessment. Now we are moving to once every 5 years. Otherwise, those years in between are pretty much a review. You want to look at them, make sure and say, yeah, we still feel like this is relevant. We don't really see a huge amount of change happening right now. Not that you can't shift if you feel like there isn't a need, but really we're saying you have 5 years in between. You know, one of the things that we're also talking about and want to encourage you to do, and probably will be part of the needs assessment piece, is that we're looking at it being a more outward focused or community focused needs assessment. Working with partners, finding out who in your community are going to be good collaborators in the process there, as well as maybe what strengths that you have within your church. And I think that there are some pieces that we can tease out internally in those other years if you want to spend the time doing like a congregational poll or a survey. But that $250 will be tied to that one-time needs assessment piece every 5 years. So in the past,
keep in mind, we've always given you the option and encouraged you to work outside the congregation, not just inside the congregation. And this really encourages and kind of pushes you a little bit to say, okay, what are other churches doing? What are other organizations doing? What are the bigger needs? That if it's a need in your community, it's probably a need in your congregation as well.
Good point. So again, the old program was to have 3 full plans every year. That will carry forward, but here's the great part of this. You've asked, and we're hoping to deliver on this, that the plans will carry over from previous years so that you're not having to repopulate that stuff in. It will pre-populate and you can carry those in, and then you just have to edit it or update those as needed. And then the old requirement was for 1 new plan that would be required every year. We've changed this to every 5 years, almost in alignment with when you're doing your needs assessment. Maybe it's time to look and say, hey, we want to do a 5-year, like a new plan. We want to change it up a little bit. We want to let go of something and we want to do something new. That is a significant change where we're saying, it's not going to be required every year to have a new plan. And the other piece of this that I want to highlight is that once you do that, it's a rolling 5-year cycle. So it will not be required to do it every time. You will just have to do it once you submit it. So say you pick a new activity this year, then you have 5 years from this year to do it on that piece. So just something else to be aware of there.
And the next one you're going to be the most excited about is the SMART outcome language that all of you hate. We still expect you to identify the outcomes you expect from your plans. And remember, your outcome is not what you're going to do, but what you hope to happen as a result of what you do. We aren't going to worry about the SMART outcome language any longer. So as long as you can tell us what that outcome is in however you want to phrase it, we're fine with that.
And one other piece that I should tell you within that as well is that not only will you not have that requirement, you're only going to be picking one dimension of health. I think there was confusion in the past about how they were all available and you felt like you had to pick a number of them. Really, it's just going to be one that's available for you to click on and do. We know that there are other dimensions of health that it could fall in line with, but we want you to select that and be pretty intentional in that one dimension so that you're not feeling, so it's not quite as confusing for the planning process. So the needs assessment report and plan due at the same time. That was what has been required in the past. We are changing that. So I mentioned before. So again, they say adults need to hear it 7 times, right? To remember this. So I guess I'm going to do it 7 times and I apologize, but for you to be able to sorry, I'm getting a little bit of some feedback here, trying to mute some lines. So that we will do that, as I mentioned, this year only, July 15th, the needs assessment and the report will be due, and then the work plan will be due August 31st this year. In the future, it will be May 15th for reporting and needs assessment, and then the work plans will be due June 30th.
And if you think about that, that makes a whole lot of sense to have that report out of the way before you decide what plans you're going to keep doing and which ones you're going to let go of, as opposed to doing your planning based on your needs assessment and then doing a report. You only have to put a new report or a new work plan in once every 5 years. You can do it more often than that, but we're only requiring it. But by having your report due first, it really helps your team to kind of look at how did that go? Did it is it something we still have the energy for and the passion for? Do we want to let go of that and move on to something else? So that our logic there is that you'll have those pieces out of the way, so that then when you're doing your plan, that's going to be the easy part. You can say, yes, I'm going to renew those 3 plans, or we're going to, keep 2 of them and let 1 go, and we're going to add 1 new one. So it's going to be much simpler, but our logic there is that your report and your needs assessment will both inform your plans.
Okay. And then last but not least, as we said before, these are like the really good slides to just get it all in one place so you can see the differences from the old program to the new program. So face-to-face and virtual training options were available in the past. And now, as Judy mentioned, we're going to do a self-paced training option as well. Hopefully really trying to streamline down the amount of time sitting in the training piece to condense that down where you're doing more self-paced, can review it, or virtual or face-to-face training options. So again, as we said, these will be due and they're required for $1,000 annual renewal grant eligibility. It's not required for new teams and rejoining teams that did not submit plans in the past. And then for 2020, it will be due July 15th. Those pieces are required. So that's another thing that I just want to make sure that we say is that those have to be in. They don't have to be approved. They have to be in by July 15th and in the future May 15th for then you to be able to be eligible for the rest of that grant process for the planning piece of this. So that's just something to lift up.
So let's talk a little bit about the needs assessment. And if you look at the cycle over on the right-hand side, it truly is a 5-year cycle. So once every 5 years, we're asking you to plan and conduct a new health needs assessment. And we're going to give you $250 additional to your annual grant on those 5 years. This is one of those things where as Katie pointed out, we want you to really look at the larger community. So if you think back to your training where we talked about all the different data sources that you can use, we really are going to push you to use those and look at your community and look at what are the needs in the broader community, who are your potential partners, how confident do you feel, and so on. And then on the alternate years, so years 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're simply going to go back as a team and look at that. And Katie, do you want to flip back? There we go. And you're gonna simply go back and look at that and say, has anything big changed? And this is where we would encourage you. I know a lot of times you've identified some things that you think you want to do, and maybe you do an internal survey or poll in your congregation. This is when you would do those in those years 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you want to do those things, if you want to do a town hall meeting or focus groups or so on. If you look at the scheduling, the second bullet point, this is really important. If you're a new team, you have to do one of the full Healthy Congregations needs assessments. And that is going to be due July 15th. And then you will go into the cycle, the 5-year cycle. And so if you look, current teams, your needs assessment is always going to be based on the first initial of the city. We couldn't do the name of your church or everybody would be on the first United Methodist. So if you look, if you're in a town that starts with A, B, C, D, or E, you will have a full needs assessment due this year, just like you would normally have had one due. However, if your town starts with F through Z, you can see that you won't have a needs assessment this year, but it will be in the future years. For new teams, you will have your first full needs assessment due this year, and then you will fall into that cycle. So you may end up doing a full needs assessment 2 years in a row if you're in a town that starts with A, but if you're in a town that starts with T, you don't have another full needs assessment due until 2023. But then you fall into that cycle of every 5 years. New teams, we're not giving you an extra $250 because we already gave you $1,000 as part of your sign up, and that money is to get you started. And that initial needs assessment is, again, that's one of the things that pays for. And Shelley is cheering on that Wichita doesn't have to do a needs assessment until 2024. It wasn't
luck of the
by us
draw.
intentionally for
Right.
us Wichita people, but again, that needs assessment, either the renewal or the new one, has to be turned in on time in order for you to be eligible for your annual grant. The system, Jeff is working very hard on all the updates in the system. The system will remind you when your needs assessment, the full-blown needs assessment, is due. It will also populate your old needs assessment with the option for you to come back in and review it and make any changes to it that you want to make, and then to check that, yes, we've reviewed it and we're good. But you won't have to re-enter everything like you've had to enter in the past. Any questions? Does that make sense? If there are questions, be sure and put those in the chat box. Katie, let's look at the next slide. It's also a little more on the needs assessment. So again, if you're a new team, you need to complete a needs assessment this year. It's due by July 15th. The $1,000 sign-up money that you've already received offsets the expense of that. And then the next time you have a full needs assessment, it depends on the first initial of the town that you're in. Again, these dates, these due dates, will be programmed into the system so that when you pull up your church's records, it'll say, Shelley, your next needs assessment is due 2024. So you'll be reminded. You don't have to keep track of it. So we've given you all of those. And then again, on the years that we ask you to do that full needs assessment, where you're looking at state and county level data, that you're talking with your partners in the community, that you're really reaching outside of the congregation, we're going to give you an extra $250 in your annual grant. So it'll be a $1,250 grant on the year that you have that 5-year cycle, the year that you have the full needs assessment required. Okay, Katie.
Okay, so with this too, I think I just want to highlight for you. So again, teams this year, A through E, that your city name starts with A through E, that full needs assessment will be due July 15th. For everyone else, we will need you to just make sure that it's as updated as you want it to be. You will still have to make sure it's like in there, and you have to okay it. But otherwise, you won't have to
I'm going to keep babbling, and so that you can let us know when you regain audio.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Great. I can. Okay.
Oh,
People are
yay.
saying they're back up. Great.
I apologize. I don't know what's happening. Sometimes these things, when they work, they're wonderful, but then they don't. Then sometimes they're not. Help when they quit working, right? Can you still see the PowerPoint slides? I think that's most important. Okay, yeah, if we're not seeing everything else. Thank you guys for your chat box messages in here. That was really helpful for us to try to figure out how to handle this as quickly as possible. So thank you. Okay, while they can't, I will go ahead and try to see if they can do video now. Judy, if you want to as well. So all 3 work plans will be required. And again, every 5 years you will need a new one, not before then. And there will be a process that kind of reminds you in this as well. So annual renewal funding not available until teams have at least 3 certified team members. So I think the important part of this is just, this is more for the new teams. Make sure that you have that in, and you also have your sign up form. So that's an important other piece. So for 2020, August 31st, those are due. Normally it will be June 30th. Anything else?
Do you drop a plan each 5 years or keep adding if things are going well? And that's really up to you. That's a great question. We have some churches that have been involved in this initiative since we started it 14 years ago, and they have long lists of plans. And I think sometimes we hesitate to let go of things. And we're giving you permission to let go of things. Sometimes the need has changed. Sometimes the passion for an initiative has gone. Maybe you're keeping going because your team cares about it, but you're not getting. Oops, somebody says they can't hear me.
Oh, no. I can hear you, Judy. I'm not sure. Make sure that
sometimes
your
people will tell us that they can't. Okay, she can hear us. Sometimes people will say, well, you know, our team really wants to do this, but 5 people come to this program. Well, then I think it's one of those things that by giving you that 5-year cycle, we're saying, take a look at what you're doing. And rather than just continuing to pile on things, look at what is making a difference, what you're passionate about, what your team and your partners feel like are going well, and continue those, and give yourself permission to let go of those things that maybe are kind of worn out, that you aren't getting much participation or people on your team are kind of tired of doing. So we're trying to give you permission to let go. So your question, do we drop a plan each 5 years? That's really up to you. But we're encouraging you to really look at that and say, what's going well? We want to give ourselves permission to give away. Okay, there's my videos back.
Yep, I'm getting a comment about an echo sound. You may have 2 sounds going at one time if you're the only one getting it. So if you have multiple, like if you're trying to listen over your phone as well as audio through your computer. So that may be part of it. Anyone else getting echoes? Again, technology is great until it doesn't work correctly. So thank you for bearing with us in all of these challenges. Okay, did I miss a slide? I advanced it. Nope, we're good. Okay.
Now, we want to kind of go into a little bit of the detail of what we're thinking about, because some of these things are going to look different. So Katie, do you want to talk about the annual report a little bit?
Sure. So I think some of the pieces, and one other thing that I want to highlight, because I think this will be an important piece, one thing that we're really looking at doing is having some pieces that will be triggers for you. So either some like brief comments or some way that'll really help you navigate this versus maybe having to go back and watch the whole webinar that we've done at one point, like we have in the past. So that there will be some pieces that hopefully will be helpful for that. And what we want you to do is really what the reporting process is. And for us internally, I would say at the Health Fund, I think it's really important that we're sharing stories. And candidly, we haven't been great about asking if you guys would be willing to submit these. And so, uh-oh. Hold on a second, I'm getting some feedback. Okay, are we still getting feedback? Okay, I think I've got it fixed now. So really the opportunity for you guys to share stories, things that have gone really well while you, or what you've discovered while implementing the activity. We want it to be more about the numbers reached, whether you consider it successful. Those are the things that we're asking you in the past. They will be the same things, but we would really like the story piece of it. Then really
just a few sentences. We aren't asking you to write a book.
No books. Like I would say, you know, if you can do it in a paragraph at the most, like 3 to 4 sentences, maybe 5 to 6 if it's like a really great story. Otherwise, it can be pretty simple and you're not required to. I think some of what we're trying to say with the annual report is it's really hopefully a process for you guys as a team to talk about what you feel like's gone well, to really celebrate your successes, and then think about things that were energizing and exciting, and which ones made your partners feel resistant or drained. I think those are important pieces. And as Judy was talking about, you know, it's okay to let go of some of this if it doesn't feel like it's still working. So that's partially why we're trying to build this stuff in. So the remember, respond, and then realigning. So briefly describe the level of continued passion among your team members and partner for the plan and your team's decision about whether or not you're going to continue with a certain activity. So that's just something as your internal process with your team. And I do think it's really important that it's not just individually, that as a team you collectively talk about, does it still make sense for us to try to implement X, Y, or Z? Do we feel like this is good? Do we need to change things a bit? Or is it time to let it go and try something different? So we want you to feel like you have opportunity to change things where you can find more passion and people's strengths. So Peggy asked, will these slides be available? They are on the website now for you to share with your team members as well. So yes, there you go. If you go to the website, thank you, Jeff, for that. Please feel free to look at those later on. Okay. And then the grant requirements for work plans. Judy, do you want to go over some of this? I think most of this will.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. That Jeff again is setting up the website so that it will pre-populate plans from the previous year, and then you'll simply go in and make any changes you want to make, and then you will need to check, we're going to repeat this, we're going to delete this, but we are not requiring that smart outcome format. We are requiring you to think about what is the outcome, you know, and the outcome may be greater participation, but hopefully the outcome is that people have access to healthy food, or that they have access to COVID-19 testing, or they have access to face masks, that kind of thing. But we don't require that formatting that we required in the past. It was a struggle for a lot of people. I'm an academic, and so it's one of those things you taught me that I need to stop being so much of an academic. So we're not going to do that anymore. You told us that loud and clear. We do encourage you to repeat successful plans and to really think about, okay, how can we modify that? How can we reach more people or make a bigger change, that kind of thing. But we encourage you to repeat successful plans. But as I said, we also encourage you to let go of ones that are either exhausting your team and your partners, or that you don't feel like is a problem for people. I did just get a question that if we've already done the smart format, can we turn that in? Absolutely. If you love the smart format and you can do it, go for it. But we don't require it anymore. And again, you are required one new plan every 5 years. You can add those whenever you want to. So if you get to year 2 and you say, we really want to add this plan, you can add that plan in year 2, and that starts a new 5-year cycle of when you have your next plan due. So then if you add a new plan 2 years from now, the next time you're required to add another plan would be 7 years from now. And we really heard loud and clear from our churches that have been involved for a long time that we have so many things going on. Trying to come up with yet another plan every year is a real burden. And as we looked at that, we said $1,000 is a lot of money for a small church. But at some point, we have to right size it so that we're not requiring too much of you for the $1,000. And so that was some of our rationale of doing this. So let go of things, add things as you want to, but it's much more flexible than it has been in the past. And again,
go ahead,
Katie.
Well, I was just going to say one other thing to know, and this should be exciting for all of you that have been doing this. You will have really, last year you did a new plan. So you will have 5 years from last year. So at least 4 more years before you're required to change one plan or to update or to do something new. So within that timeline, you can start it over when you want to, or you can wait until then and really be intentional about that. Or if it's tied with whatever year your needs assessment is and you want it to fall in line with that system, then that way you're kind of on the same one, you're welcome to do that as well. So we want you to know too, right now you are not required to do any new plans this year or for the next three years after this. So
unless you want to.
Unless you want to, or it's time. I mean, that's the other thing, as Judy said, like it really may be where something isn't working anymore and it's time to let it go and move on and find something new that people are more excited about. So.
And then the last bullet point there, Jeff is working really hard, and Katie and I have made tremendous demands on Jeff on the website, but last year's plans will carry over, and so they will be, your outcomes will be in the old SMART format. And so those will carry over. You don't have to copy and paste or rewrite things. They will be in the system for you to react to and to modify as you want. So hopefully the amount of time you spend entering plans will be significantly reduced. Okay.
Okay, so I have a question here. Is it the needs assessment that is due based on the letter of your town? Correct. Correct. Great.
It'll be nice to respond to emerging issues and opportunities with the new plan. Absolutely, absolutely. And those things happen. And you're right. It could be a need or it could be an opportunity. And as opportunities present themselves, you have the option of addressing those.
Yeah, so I think those are really great pieces.
We don't generally publish each other's plans, but this is one of those things that if you wanted to have a conversation and share ideas around plans around a particular topic, that might be something that you would suggest, and then we'd send that out to everybody and say, you know, virtual office hours on this date and time, this is what we're going to talk about, join us and let's share ideas. But we generally don't publish each other's plans for everybody to see.
You can call us though, and if there's things that you have specific questions about or ideas that you want to talk through, we can also kind of pilfer through what we have and see if there may be someone willing to kind of engage with you as well. So that may be another opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, I used to be able to tell you everybody's plans, and not only am I old, but we have a lot of churches, and so, but that's one of those things that if you say this is what we're interested in, we can figure out who's doing the same kind of work and connect you.
Yep. So again, For those of you who have been in healthy congregations for a number of years, or those that are working on this now, as you can see, we have a number of pieces and a number of special grant opportunities, and we just keep trying to expand those. So for some of you, you've already done a big garden or community garden. We're still trying to encourage those who haven't. If you're interested, you can do a startup or an expansion of a community garden or a startup of one of your own. The bike share program, we're anticipating will continue.
And Katie, there's a question about if they're in the bike share program, could they use grant money then to buy items to go with that, like helmets and so on?
I think perhaps, or locks or other things like that, if that's what you wanted to spend. I would make sure, the thing I would say about the helmets is how you would check those out, how you would make sure they were cleaned in between. There would be some pieces of that you would have to navigate, and I would just, again, this is why it's really helpful to have Lissa and the team from Thrive Allen. They might be able to answer some of that for you. But if there are pieces that you want to set aside a portion of your funding, even from special grant opportunities, once you've gotten that money to continue to do these pieces from your normal grant making, we absolutely encourage you to do that. We know and we want those investments to continue on. And so if you spend $250 or $500 of your entire grant making budget for doing a special grant, we think that's a valuable matching of the funds. So yes, but those may be some questions as you were asking that part of it. So one piece that we will probably do more of an announcement is around giving groves, and we'll give you some more information as that kind of rolls out, but that's something to look forward to this fall. I'm not going to tell much more than that. It's just going to be a really cool opportunity. So once we have some additional pieces, we will start promoting that pretty soon. So the Good Neighboring Experiment, we will continue. The first cohort just finished up, and we're planning on another one starting. We're looking at August, September, and highly encourage you guys to participate with that. This has been a great partnership there. Mental health first aid, we have been starting to work with the Association for Community Mental Health Centers of Kansas to consider opening up trainings for this. In the midst of the COVID response, some of this has slowed down or we haven't been able to offer. And so that would be one that we would say later on this year, we will launch it a bit more formally and allow once things kind of settle back in with that. Strengthening families training, we also had planned on having it retreat this year, and we will look to see if there's another time to do a training later in the year. We're not quite sure on timeline or how that will look, but we will offer that again within the next year, maybe a retreat next year, if not before then. The summer food service program, I really want to lift up to you right now. You know, in the midst of COVID, and we're hearing so many challenges with people having access to food, we know the need is great. More people are being laid off of jobs. The food banks are stretched to their limits. And so summer food program, some of the schools are, because of the way they've had to implement this and do the food in this way, they may be more ready and interested if they have not been a summer food site in the past, and maybe could consider doing it, or maybe as a partnership. And this is a $2,000 grant opportunity to work with, either starting one on your own within your organization or within the church, or partnering and providing volunteerism, funding other pieces to help extend maybe the season of food for children. Because again, we're looking at just a couple of weeks from now, schools will be done and they may quit serving kids. And so the need will become even greater for them. Backpack programs, ways to support other type of programming. We've had some groups like buy refrigerators or coolers to make sure that they're able to serve these families. So this is me putting in a really big plug, and I'll probably send out an email with more information. But if this is not something that you guys have done, or if you're partnering with your other churches or within your congregation, or with your school district right now, I would highly encourage you to see if there would be some ways that alignment could occur, and we would welcome the opportunity to invite more summer food service program grants this year. So stay tuned on that. I know that the deadlines typically are May 1st for that submission to be part of it, but I think there's more flexibility this year just because we know that the timing and the amount of need is so much greater. Again, later this year, there will be an initiative around voter engagement, just in general, people just voter to voter engagement, so that they're able to think about ways to just make sure everyone gets to the polls. We know that's a really important piece, and so it's helping with our health and taking care of those things as it affects it greatly. So potential for other opportunities later this year, there may be a few more that will come about. So as you can see, we are just growing our list of availabilities for special grants, and really hope that you will consider that as you guys are putting your plans together or what you might want to do in the future.
And so for you new teams that are on, these grants are for healthy congregations teams, healthy congregations churches, that this is additional funding for these additional projects that are mostly one-time grants, but that again, you can take these to your community partners and say, we have this resource, and it really makes it a whole lot easier to get community partners on board when you're bringing a resource like a grant to the table. And so I really encourage you to look at the special grant opportunities. This is huge, and I love that the Health Fund has this bolus of money that they've set aside in addition to the annual grants, but they've set aside this additional money just for you so that you can engage your community partners in these projects. It's huge. And as you heard Katie, the list just continues to grow. It's really exciting.
Those, again, if you're interested on any of those, and not all of them are listed on the website, but you can go under the Healthy Congregations. If you click that menu on the right-hand side of our website, there is a laundry list, and you can kind of go through and look, and there's more information on a number of them. If you still have questions, please feel free to reach out.
Vicki has a question about the summer food service. Vicki, it really depends on the community, what's going on. I know the Wichita schools announced that they were closing, and then the governor in Kansas closed the schools through the end of the school year. And in some states, it's community by community, so it just depends. But at least in the Wichita school district, they've been serving meals. They're grab and go meals that you have to bring the kids in the car, but you can grab and go. And whether they will continue beyond the end of when school would normally be open, I think is what Katie was referring to.
Correct. Thank you.
And so,
and thank you for that, Vicki, because you're right. I was not meaning confusing when I'm saying closing. School year will be ending, and so many of them may discontinue providing food at that point. So that's why I was saying that's an important draw for some of those. And they are working together, but I think that's a really neat piece about what's happening in response to COVID is they're trying to figure out how that would work.
Are there funds to help certify mental health? Can you give us a little bit more information about what you're asking?
I'm not sure I understand the certifying.
I'm not sure I understand. We are going to be offering the mental health first aid training once we're able to again convene people and so on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great that the school is continuing. Again, I think it's really important that they're providing meals as long as they can, because we know the need will be greater and greater right now. Renita, whenever you can, if you want to, we can talk a little bit more on that later. So again, the other piece that we wanted to lift up that will be part of the reporting is that we are asking where the special grants received, the content will vary, but we really would like for you to share any success stories that you have through the special grants. Because while we get a report from this, it's really great to capture those stories, and we don't always get those. And so again, if you have any additional stories to share through your special grant opportunities, we would really love for those to be available and for you to share those with us.
The Health Ministry Fund Board needs to hear your success stories. They're the ones who approve the money for all of these things. So Katie's being very politically correct here. They need to hear your success stories. So yeah, tell us in your report, we're saying what went well, what was your success story? And again, we don't need a book. We need a paragraph, a few sentences. And then it also is helpful because the United Methodist Health Ministry Fund sometimes partners with other folks to apply for other kinds of grants. And so again, it's, as a grant writer, let me tell you, nothing makes your grant more believable to those who are reviewing it than when you're able to give specific examples of success.
So there's and I agree. And the other piece that I would say, it's not just for our board. I would also say it's something that we would like to be able to lift up more frequently. As Shelley asked earlier, are there things that we can talk through? The success stories, I think we would like to share more frequently, larger groups, so that you all know what each other are doing and things that we can lift up. So there would be opportunities for that in the future.
And that's part of your reporting.
Yeah. So, and it will be on the report. I see that question on there. So I wanted to make sure and say too, like, it will be included as you're asking for the reporting process. It will say something about, do you have other special grants or stories that you would like to share and lift up there? So great question. Again, this has been recorded. So if you're having problems hearing or any echoing other challenges, that might be another way to make sure that you're able to see it. This right here, we will probably send this slide out to everyone, but it does go through and it gets it all on one page, and this will be on the website too. So it's just the heavy recap of everything. I'm not going to go through it piece by piece, but just really encourage you guys to look at some of this and find it. Also, I know that there was a question about where to find the slides. And if you go on the website, I'm sending it again. The slides are available on our website at HC 2020 web. You can see over here, if you go there, they're already posted on the website for review. And the recorded webinar will be available as well. So do we have any other questions that we have? I just got one. Can we turn the HC grant request in as we have prepared it this year? Yes. If you've already started working on your grant application for this, you're welcome to turn it in. Again, we won't start reviewing all of it until later in the year because of just our deadlines that we're going to push a little bit, but you can turn them in. We have not even opened up the system yet because we're still in the midst of making changes right now. So when that is available, we'll let you all know. We'll send out an email and say, hey, it's time for you all to be able to go into the system and begin including your report and needs assessment will be first. And then 15 or 45 days later, your plans will be due. So. Any other
questions about anything? We covered a whole lot of information tonight.
Wow.
As you process this and talk to your team members, if you have questions, feel free to email Katie or me, and we'll try to answer your questions for you. And as Katie said, she's recording this webinar, so it will be available as well. Anything else before we let you go? We've kept you the full hour, Katie.
We have actually over. So thank you guys. And I appreciate all the really positive comments here. And I'm really hopeful. So again, we were still trying to modify, and we just want you to tell us. So being honest and being truthful with this has really helped us too. So Again, if you have questions or need anything moving forward, we are here for you and we want to be supportive of you. And thank you for all of your work that you guys are doing. This is really for you, and hopefully it will be beneficial for you and make it simpler so that you guys can go out and do the great work that you already are doing. With that,
when we send an evaluation survey next time, hopefully everybody will complete it, because you can see we really do listen to what you tell us. So the updates all came from the things you told us you wanted. So hopefully we have addressed your concerns. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your week. Take care.
Healthy and socially distance.
Yes, please. Wear those masks too. Okay, with that, we're going to close. Feel free to contact if you need anything. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Be careful.